Hello, my name is Ashanwa. Welcome to Laja. This is a channel dedicated to African fashion, prints, and textiles. If that's something that's of interest to you, I encourage you to stick around and subscribe. Today, I'm going to be doing a get ready with me, and I'm going to do a look inspired by this Ankara top that I'm currently wearing. I have it with um, a simple pair of slacks, white lead pants. This is what it looks like. And yeah, and I'm going to be doing my makeup while I discuss a proverb that ties in with ancestry. So yeah, let's begin. So the Ika proverb is from my ebook over 150 Ika Proverbs you should know. And in there, I spoke with my parents, my family members, my grandparents, and I got their feedback on different types of Ika Proverbs. And I compiled it into a book where you can actually purchase. So it's an ebook on my website, misslaja.com. So you can go there and purchase it. Another ebook I have is called Deceased Textiles, The Controversial Origins of African Print. And that's a book where we learn about the history of Ankara or African prints. I share some styling tips, and I also give ways to do just general information on it. So that's how you can support my channel. Last but not the least is my tassel earrings, which are available for sale in different colors. Also on misslaja.com, you can. Ooh, maybe I should actually wear this red one. Hold on. Let's do a quick demo. Which one should I wear? We'll decide at the end. I'll just wear one of each. So this is the red one. And then I have this other burgundy one, also by Fulfill Jewelry. So let me know which one I should wear down below. This red one is giving me. Red is one of my favorite colors. So I think I might probably end up choosing this one. But this is not bad either. I think the red is calling my name. The red is calling my name. The red is calling my name. I'll go with the red for this outfit. Okay, so today's proverb, Ika proverb, is you cannot know your father and mother and say you don't know your ancestors. And I'll repeat it again. You cannot know your father and mother and say you don't know your ancestors. And I looked at that proverb and it inspired me to talk about my own ancestry or just the topic of ancestry in general, why it's important, and different ways to connect with your ancestors and how I connect with mine. So before I start my makeup, these are my ancestors, the matriarchs of my family. My mom isn't in here. Well, they're all dead. So I created a frame of my maternal lineage just as a way to connect with them. And something I noticed that my dad does at home is that he has pictures of his parents who have passed away at this time. May they all rest in peace. I wanted to keep the memory of the matriarchs of my family alive. I'm not saying that I have anything wrong with the patriarchy, but I am a woman, and so it was just important to me to connect with and honor the matriarchs of my family. So over here is my maternal grandmother, Rita. She's the one I was closest with. She passed away in 2020 from. Maybe I'll just. How can I talk and do my makeup at the same time? I'll come back to this. Let me just do my makeup while I'm talking. But I'm going to break all of that down. But, you know what? Let me just show you their pictures, their names, so you can put a name to them. So this is Rita. This is my namesake, my paternal great-grandmother, Ashanwa. And this is Victoria, my paternal grandmother. So maternal grandmother, Rita, paternal great grandmother, Ashanwa, my namesake, And over here is my paternal grandmother, Victoria. So let's begin the makeup and let's just chat. I don't have a script for this, so I'm just talking free flowing. So for me, in terms of when I think of ancestry, I think of the people who come before you, your grandparents, your great grandparents, your great great grandparents. I think of legacy, and I feel like it's super important to connect with and know who your ancestors were, because it can help you have a sense of belonging in terms of like, okay, I know where I came from, I know what they stood for, I know the legacy they left behind, I know what they were known for. And it's just a way to have a sense of knowing, inner knowing, knowing thyself. And I just feel like connecting with your ancestors is so, so, so important, whether they are alive, living, or dead. I'm not going to lie, I didn't really connect that much with my paternal side. I was closer to my maternal grandmother, Rita, before she did pass away. And I just want to say that I won't say I regret not getting closer to my paternal grandparents, because I do learn more about them from my parents, who are thankfully and by God's grace still alive and will live long and in good health. But as you can probably guess, I was most curious about my paternal great grandmother Shanwa, because I'm named after her. And so I was like, what was she like? So I guess I can go into each of my matriarchal family members and kind of like share notable stories and what they were known for. So I'll start with my namesake, Ashanwa. So Ashanwa was known for being... She was the first wife, so she was in a polygamous marriage, because at least back then that was something that was pretty common. So she was the first wife, and she was known to be a very industrious woman. She was good at commerce. She had her own business, which is like a really big deal for women back then. I forget exactly what she sold, but I know she had her own business, and she was also consulted by women of Otolokbo, which is the village I'm from. She was consulted by women on issues, different issues. It could be familial issues, personal issues. So she was kind of like, she held a titleship in the village that I was from. So she was well known for her commerce and her being kind of like a matriarch of the community, essentially. So I think that's an amazing legacy to leave behind, especially back then in those days when women were kind of like confined to the domestic sphere. Not that there's anything wrong with being confined to the domestic sphere, because I do believe that, women shine when they take care of their homes and their families, and that's something I aspire to be able to do eventually. But it's always good to know that she also had influence. Her influence was not just within the home, it's also extended to the community around her. So that was very inspirational. I really wanted to know. I don't think she was Christian. She practiced the traditional religion, which I really want to learn more about. My parents are not as familiar, and I'm not too sure what the traditional Ika religion was. But that's something I'm definitely interested in, because I do have kind of like a strained relationship with Christianity right now, and I'm still figuring out what my spiritual path is and what direction I want to go in with my spirituality. But I know that connecting with my ancestors is definitely one of them, because you have to know where you come from to know where you're going to, where you're going to, if that makes sense. So that's a story for Ashanwa. She was a very strong and amazing woman. I forget how many wives my paternal great grandfather had, but I know she was one of many wives, but she stood out for her strength and how she handled her business. And she was just known to be a very beautiful woman who was very industrious and known in the community for being a pillar of support. So that's Ashanwa, who I'm named after. I think names are pretty significant, and I've been thinking about, because I really like to recycle names, like the way I really hope and pray that if my kids have kids and when I'm no longer here, I would love for them to name them Ashanwa, because I want that name to keep going, to have that legacy keep going within the family, the matriarchal legacy to keep on going and stuff like that. So that's it for Ashanwa, and I'll show you her picture again so that before I continue my makeup. So this is Ashanwa right here in white. And so that's Ashanwa. So moving on to my paternal grandmother. Oh my gosh, Victoria. So Victoria, from what I've learned from my mom, was a slayer. Yeah, she was a slayer in the best way possible. And what I mean by that is my grandfather, Odoziale, that's his titleship, or Patrick, that was his name before he passed away. And by the way, they're actually buried together. Isn't that lovely? They're buried together in the village of Otolokbo, Delta State. But anyways, Victoria was known to be a woman who held her own. Like, she was someone that was not easily shaken or stirred. She held her own, and she was the only wife, well, the longest standing wife of my grandfather, Patrick Odoziale. And from the accounts that I knew of got from my mom, because she was much closer to her, and my mom was like, she learned so much about her when it comes to men, when it comes to marriage, when it comes to raising kids. But my grandmother had 10 kids. 10 kids came out of her. And if you see her, she does not look like she's had any kids at all. She's very slim and slender, very beautiful, and she knew it. And anyways, I'll just share this story of how her and my grandfather actually met. So this is the accounts that I was told. So apparently, my grandmother, so Victoria, she was then engaged to another man. But then my grandfather, Patrick, saw her and was like, nah, this is my wife. You're my wife. And mind you, she was engaged back then. She was in, like, the other ones in the picture, they had met the family. Like, it was a whole thing that they were going to get married. But my grandfather pursued her fervently. You know, if the other suitor brought 1 cow, my grandfather Patrick bought 3. If he bought, like, he was just, you know, trying to do things to win not just her over, but also the family. Because when you get married in Nigerian culture, at least especially in my culture, it's a family affair. You have to not just win over the bride, but you also have to win over her family as the man. And so he pursued her fervently, and eventually my grandmom called off the engagement and ended up going with my grandfather, and they got married. And as much as I would like to say they lived happily ever after, that wasn't necessarily the case. Because of course, all marriages, I mean, they did live happily ever after because they were married for the long term and stuff like that. But their marriage definitely did have ups and downs, with the major one being that my grandfather really loved Victoria. So Patrick loved Victoria, but he kind of like got pressure from his friends, because my grandfather was very wealthy, and typically wealthy men, the expectation is for them to have multiple wives. So he would kind of like get pressure from his friends to marry more women, because they're like, why would you only have one wife? A man like you, a man of your caliber, a man of your stature, why would you have only one wife? Like, you should have more and whatnot. So he kind of like succumbed to that, and he married. I think he married he got two more brides. And my grandma was, of course, not happy with this. Victoria wasn't happy with this, but she didn't have a say so in his affairs and how he chose to keep their marriage or run the marriage, essentially. So my grandfather married two other wives, but from what I've learned from my mom, those women they couldn't stand a chance with Victoria. Because, mind you, because my grandma was like, what, would talk to my granddad and be like, allegedly, I wasn't there, obviously. But she would be like, you already have 10 kids. Like, I cook very well. I take care of myself. What more do you want? But he was just kind of like, you know how men are. Men just want to do what they want to do when they want to do it. So, of course, she just let him be. And that was one lesson that she kind of like bestowed upon her, my mom bestowed upon me, and that's to never chase a man. Like, never chase a man, never chase penis. Can I say that? I already did. So yeah, never chase a man. And so my granddad married two other wives, but they couldn't stand a chance. So, and my granddad ended up favoring Victoria because of how well she carried herself. She wasn't jealous. She wasn't combative. She held her own. She took care of her kids. When it was her turn to cook, she cooked her food exceptionally well. Hers was just always special, and hers just always stood out. So she ran her business, because Victoria was also a businesswoman. So she had her own trade. I think she sold crayfish, food stuff in the market. I don't remember specifically, but I know she had her own business that she was running. And she just focused on her affairs and focused on herself through the entire thing. And I guess to an extent that kind of bothered the other wives, because she wasn't catty, she wasn't trying to compete with them. She just stayed in her own lane, focused on raising her children. Like, she was a busy woman, a mom of 10, a business owner, and a wife. Yes, she was the first wife and whatnot, but eventually those women did not last in the marriage. And after, not that my grandma proved herself to my granddad, not that Victoria proved herself to Patrick, but just because of the way she carried himself. And he would compare his three wives, and Patrick was like, what am I looking for? Like, she just always stood out. She stood out from the other women, and it was just kind of like very hard to miss how well she stood out from the other wives he married. So eventually, the other two wives could not really handle the heat, and I guess maybe the special treatment that Victoria kind of got from my grandfather Patrick, and they eventually left. So she was back to being the only wife. And after that, my grandfather said he's done getting married, and he's just going to focus on Victoria because she has everything he desires in a woman. So it turns out that it did end up in her favor. And I think the big lesson that I can learn from her is that, ladies, if you're a woman watching this, the importance of continuously investing in yourself. Because the truth is that you really cannot control what a man chooses to do, especially when you're in a marriage. You can't control what a man does. All you can control all you have control over is yourself. Taking care of yourself, taking care of your affairs, taking care of your kids if you have any, and just being the best you that you can be. And that's how you sell yourself to a man. It's not by cooking, it's not by cleaning, it's not by trying to give him as much kitty cats as possible. That's not the way. It's by investing in yourself and taking care of yourself and your affairs. And by affairs, I mean your business if you have one, your kids if you have one, and your home if you have one. So it was so inspirational when my mom was telling me the story about Victoria, and I was like, damn, that's a really strong woman. And my mom was like, yeah, like she wasn't someone that socialized a lot. She didn't believe in friends. She didn't believe in having friends. And she just kept to herself. She just focused on her family, her business, and God. And I was like, that right there sounds like the recipe for a peaceful life. Let me drink some celery juice. And yeah, so that's Victoria. That is Victoria, who is my paternal grandmother. And then, last but not the least, oh, this one is probably going to make me cry. Because I don't think I'm over it. But, oh God, I can't cry. I'm just doing my makeup. This was probably not the best decision. I probably should have done this after I did all my makeup. But it's all good though. So last but not the least is my maternal grandmother, Rita. Also, what was the religion of my grandmom? I know she went to church. She converted to Christianity. She and my granddad didn't go to the same church. They kind of both did their own separate thing. I think my grandfather Patrick was Catholic, and Victoria did her own thing. I don't know what it was though. I know she went to church, but they did not attend the same church. And then last but not the least, we have Rita, who is my maternal grandmother, that passed away most recently. She passed away in 2020, right before COVID. So 2020 was a rough year for me in so many angles. 2020 and 2022, but 2022 is a different story for another day. But Rita was amazing. Like, I was the closest with her. She told me a lot of stories from her childhood. You guys, when she was younger, one of the suitors that wanted to marry her was white. Because, you know, back then there were a lot of, like, not colonialists, but I guess like Peace Corps who came to Nigeria and stuff like that. So there was a guy who was like pursuing her, and he was white, but my grandmom ended up turning him down because she was afraid of the perception she would get from her family. My grandmom came from a polygamous family as well. She was afraid that what perception they would have of her if she ended up marrying a white man. And this is what she told me. And it just made me realize that the importance of, not that you shouldn't care what people think, but having a mind of your own and making a decision. One thing my mom says she learned from my grandmom is that she was very indecisive. Very, very indecisive. When it came to, she passed on a lot of opportunities that would have pushed her further because she was worried about what people were thinking. She still ended up having a good life. She passed away pretty young though, and I'm like, it's very unfortunate. And she was too kind, in my own opinion. But my grandma was never married. Rita was never married, but she did have 2 kids with the same man. And my mom would tell me that indecision was kind of like her downfall. She would ponder and ponder and ponder, and by the time she came to a decision, it was already too late. My grandmom was the kindest, most religious, and just like just too kind, almost to her own detriment. I'm not going to go into much detail because I don't want to like spill my family issues. I'm just going to focus on my ancestors. But I really feel like she had such a good heart, and it took her places, but it also held her back too, because she kind of like gave to the wrong people. And she was extremely beautiful when she was younger. I have pictures of her when she was a maiden, when she was in her 20s and stuff like that. And I was like, damn, we've got some fine women in my family, is what I'm gonna say about that. And Rita was a nurse. She worked closely with kids, so pediatric nursing. And this is probably the saddest one, but she loved children. She had her own biological kids, so my mom and another daughter. But she also raised kids who were not hers as well. But she raised them like her own. So she had a heart of gold. And whenever I just want to tap into my kindness, I just think of like, okay, I just say, Rita, please, mama, please help me to tap into the kindness, express kindness in my heart the way you would have and whatnot. But Rita her legacy was strong. She was very independent because, like I said, she was a nurse. And she was just a go-getter. I just wish she had taken on more opportunities that came her way and wasn't held back by indecision. And also, even on her burial, her younger brother, said that he wishes that she wasn't as kind as she was, because she was kind to a fault. And to the point where it killed her. It affected her health. And I wholeheartedly agree with that, because in as much as one wants to be kind and help others, it's important that we help ourselves first. Because you're no good to other people if you can't help yourself. It's kind of like, if you remember when you're on the plane, they say you should put on your face mask before helping others. So it's kind of like that same ideology as well. So Rita was very kind. She was a very kind, soft-spoken, lover of kids, lover of people. She was a deaconess in church. She's actually the one that put me off church, because I was like, I know church and Christianity is like a whole thing in my family. But I was like, so this is what she got. And again, I don't want to blame God, because I'm sure God had his reasons for why she had to leave so young. But it made me bitter, because I was like, so you mean this is what she got for being so devoted? When I tell you, I haven't met any woman who is as devoted to church and God as my grandmother. I am not even kidding. Like, she was too devoted. And I was like, so this is what she gets for it? Like, it just seemed like a scam to me. It really came across as a scam to me. And I'm still like, Rita, please help me. I know you're on the other side. Because even when she passed away, I would like have dreams of her and stuff like that. And I was like, Rita, please, you need to help me with this God and church thing, because I'm struggling with church after seeing how it's panned out for you. But anyways, let me get the headband. I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm going to wear. So yeah, so this video is just tying in with the proverb on honoring your ancestors. I really think it's important. My dad honors his own ancestors, and I believe that that's a big reason why he's very successful in his endeavors, and I want to follow suit. Even in our town home back in Nigeria in Delta State, my dad has a huge statue of Patrick in front of the house that was commissioned for him, and I think that's just the sweetest thing. I wish he had a one for my grandmama as well though, but it's all good. I still like that he is honoring his paternal, his patriarchal ancestors. I wish I knew more about the patriarchs of my family, but I don't. I know mostly about the matriarchs, and I'm happy about that. So yeah, connect with your ancestors today. Tell me what were your grandparents, great grandparents, or even parents, if they're no longer here with us anymore, what were they known for? I would love to know down in the description box. As always, you know that the products that I use for my makeup are linked down below, so you can shop it and create the look yourself. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.